All right, guys, in today's video, we are going to talk about what happens if and when you get laid off. What is the best way to go about it so that you don't have to worry about it, so you don't have to be panicked about it. If it happens, you're prepared. So this is specifically geared towards folks that are in careers that layoffs don't normally happen. Product managers, engineers, things like that, where you feel like you have a relatively stable career choice. Due to the market, due to so many different variables, it is very possible for your company to downsize or to, be in trouble. The industry, the company, there's so many variables at play. So we want to walk you through the strategies that you can use so you don't have to worry about that. Now, we're going to highlight one student in particular who was able to go from $125,000 to over $270,000 within 25 days of his company downsizing, of his company laying people off. And we're going to walk you through what the top strategies are for you to use so you don't have to worry about this. So for those of you who are new, my name's Katie. I am a coach with CareerSprout, where on average it takes us about 63 days to increase somebody's salary by about $37,000. So let's dive in here. All right, guys, let's dive in here. Now, it seems very appropriate that there's a storm in the background happening right now as we're talking about layoffs. But I wanted to just share with you guys, and I'll put the link to this in the comments below so you guys can access it. This is something called a mega thread. It has a bunch of details on the strategy that we're going to highlight today in talking about, as I mentioned, one specific student named Wesley, who went from getting laid off to, he was making about $125,000 at the time as a product manager, got laid off, and then was able to land a job with $276,000 as his base, and then is worth about 7 figures in total comp when you factor in stock options and all of that good stuff. So he was kind enough to share with, he was a student, so this was in a student community. He was kind enough to share what steps he took to make sure that he was okay, to make sure he didn't have to panic just because his company downsized. So he starts off by, first of all, and this is something very important for you guys to know, it's not a good idea to wait until it happens. That is not when you start. It's the equivalent of planting a garden. You don't want to start planting a garden when you are hungry, right? You need to have a garden planted beforehand. So this was his third major transition that he went through using this system that we're going to outline. First step he did was he was very clear on his career nirvana. He knew exactly what career path he wanted, the types of companies he wanted, the work-life balance he wanted, all of that stuff. The next thing he did was he had a resume and a LinkedIn profile that he optimized so that recruiters and hiring managers, very important that hiring managers are also reaching out to you. Recruiters and hiring managers had been actively reaching out to him throughout his entire career at this point. Now, I say his entire career. He was only about 4 years out of college at this point. So very important that you know what your goals are. You have a keyword optimized LinkedIn profile and resume. And then the big game changer here was his proactive outreach. So throughout his job search, he had been proactively reaching out to individuals within companies that he really admired. And he was building relationships with them very naturally. This is not, hey, I'd love for you to keep me in mind. I saw you have a job opportunity or a job opening. That is not what you're sending. You are simply sending it's a very templated email or LinkedIn connection request that's essentially asking to learn more about the other individual, about the hiring manager, about the executives, whoever it may be. So it's very, very important that you do those 3 steps. And then, of course, when you do those 3 things, you will consistently get interviews and you will consistently get job offers from companies. So of course, you don't need to accept those interviews when you're not actively looking. When you are actively looking, it is nice to have a whole stockpile of people who would like you to interview with them. So here are just the bits of advice that he shared. Don't panic, even in the face of layoffs. Now, this was originally happening a couple years ago when the market was, freezing and everything was going nuts. We're kind of in a similar atmosphere right now. So he said, first of all, don't panic, right? When you're jumping out of the airplane, you don't focus on the 15 things that could go wrong with your parachute. You just focus on pulling the ripcord, the next right thing. Okay. Then he said, always be working on having your communities already fully formed, right? This is not networking. This is your communities. So very, very important there. Networking is not what most people think it is. Now, if you feel crummy about networking, you're not doing it properly. You should be building actual relationships. Then working directly with the hiring managers and making recruiters your friend. This is very important. It's very rare for you to go to a recruiter and have that be the best path for you to land high-paying job offers. You have to be talking to the hiring managers directly. And then be a straight shooter when talking about comp. This is something a lot of people don't realize. Even in this market, even in when layoffs are happening, you are in more control over your salary than you think. And the people who are hiring now are in desperate need to fill that role. People aren't hiring frivolously right now. So you are very much in control of that. And then this one is arguably my favorite point here. Ride the winds of change. This company is growing like a weed right now. In recessions, in downturns, in any market, there are always people, there are always companies, there are always industries that are growing. You need to have the ability to be able to identify what is a growing market and what is a shrinking market and ride those winds. It's much easier, if you are to pick the right vehicle. If you need to cross the Atlantic, could you cross the Atlantic in a rowboat? Sure. It's a heck of a lot easier, though, to cross it in a cruise ship. So you want to pick the right vehicle to get you where you want to go. So as I mentioned, so this is just a broad overview of these things. I'm going to drop the link below because we've got plenty of free workshops, plenty of just stories with insights from students on advice that they wish they knew when they started, free tools, free guides, all of that stuff right here in this mega thread. So I'm not going to go too in depth there, but it's just really wanting to point out to you guys that you don't have to panic just because the market is changing. There are strategies that work in good times. There are strategies that work in bad times. And the cool thing is they're not that different. The strategies that people think are good because it's during a good time, it was just kind of lucky. But this is something that has worked and that we've used now between our coaches. I mean, for the last 20 years have been using, but in this specific setting or in this specific system, we've been using for the last 4 years now, I guess. So we've gone through all of the initial freezes that were happening when everybody was very uncertain, everybody started working from home, and now transitioning out of that, going through it again, exact same system, still working beautifully. So you don't have to panic. Just come here, do a little bit of due diligence, and set yourself up for success. You are in control of future-proofing your career, and you are one job offer away from completely changing the trajectory of your career and your life. So I hope you guys are having a good one, and I will talk to you soon.